Thanks for joining me once again for Greg's Preaching Right Division. Today's study will be on which Bible books are for us. The best way to understand which Bible books are for us is to understand proselytes. And it'll show us, it's a great key on understanding which Bible books are for us. It'll show us which Bible books are to us in this age. As God was going through the nation Israel, but Israel as a nation rejects Jesus as Messiah, and God went to the Gentiles, Romans says. So the first best verse to use for a definition of what a proselyte is Ruth 1:16. Ruth was born a Moabite Gentile, and she had married a Jew husband, and the husband died, and her mother-in-law says, go back to your people and to your gods. Your Gentiles had false gods, and she said, go back to your people and your gods. And she said, no, your people are my people, and your God is my God. Genesis talks about it. There's the nation Israel with strangers among them. The strangers among them are the proselytes, the Gentiles that become Jews. And once Gentiles become Jews, it's called proselytes. Proselytes is only mentioned 4 times in the Bible, but the definitions of what a proselyte is are all through the Bible. Once God deals with the nation Israel, the definitions are all over the Bible. Once you know what a proselyte is, and this is one of the best definitions of what a proselyte is Ruth left the Gentile people and became a Jew and followed the Israel God, the true God, God that created all the false gods. And so anytime you see Israel throughout the Bible, you'll have the proselytes also with them, the Gentiles, the strangers among them. We'll go to Matthew. In Matthew 10:6, Jesus was dealing with a non-Israelite, a non-Jew, and he said, I've been sent to the earth, but for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. I've not been sent for you Samaritans and Gentiles. He was sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But as we've been saying in this study, Gentiles and Samaritans can't get in. They just have to join Israel, become a Jew. As we continue on the studies to see what a proselyte is and what books belong to us, go to John 4:20. Jesus is finally talking to a non-Jew, it's a Samaritan woman at the well, and she says, you Jews say we need to worship in Jerusalem. Now for them to worship in Jerusalem, they have to be a proselyte. Gentiles and Samaritans can't get into the temple. In Acts 10, Peter said it's unlawful for a Jew to meet a Samaritan and a Gentile, even in Acts 10, long after John 4. When she says, you Jews say we need to worship in the temple, well, she says we need to worship in Jerusalem, which is the temple. She won't get into the temple without becoming a Jew called a proselyte, nor will any other Samaritan or a Gentile. So he's still going to Israel. He talks about it in the Gospels. Salvation is of the Jews. And at the end of the Gospels, in Matthew, the end of Matthew, Jesus died, buried, and arose again. Before he ascended, he said, teach all nations everything. When he says teach all nations everything, he's talking about the proselytes also. Everything would include proselytes. Jesus mentions proselytes himself. And as we continue on in the study in Acts 2:10, it says there's Jews, devout men out of every nation, and proselytes. Anytime you see proselytes, God's still going to the nation Israel. Acts 2:36 says that it's to the house of Israel, that all the house of Israel assuredly know that you've killed Jesus Christ. So there's no doubt that Acts 2 is still dealing with the nation Israel, and proselytes are mentioned in Acts chapter 2. In Romans 11:17, like I said, there's definitions all over the Bible once God's dealing with the nation Israel. And in Romans 11:17 is a definition of a proselyte, grafted in among Israel, among them. Strangers among them, like Ruth. Still dealing with Israel. Israel hasn't quite fallen yet. The proselytes are, and Israel is still being dealt with in Romans. So Israel fell between 1st and 2nd Corinthians. In 1 Corinthians it says that all their fathers followed Moses in the cloud. All of them, it says in 1 Corinthians. And in 2 Corinthians, if you turn to 2 Corinthians 6:14 through 18, he says, come out from among them, Well, you have to, as you do your studies, you have to say, come out from among who? And if you have nothing to the Bible, don't add anything to the Bible, it'll be found in Acts 18. Paul is in Corinth in verse 1, and in between 1 and 7, he's going to the synagogues, and the synagogue rejects Jesus once again. And so goes to the home church in verse 7, and he says that home church joined hard the synagogue. Joining hard the synagogue is, once again, proselytes. You can't get into the synagogue without becoming a Jew. And no longer a Gentile. You're no longer a Gentile once you become a Jew. They are Jews. And there's one law, Genesis says, even for the stranger among you. One law. Where he calls them out. Why I think Israel fell between 1st and 2nd Corinthians is because he calls them out. In 2 Corinthians 6, chapter 14 through 18, he says, come out from among them. Among them, well, it's talking about being grafted among Israel. Like Romans says, you're grafted among Israel. Ruth was among Israel, your people will be my people. So he's calling the proselytes out of Israel. Everybody, he's actually calling the Jews that believe out of Israel. He's calling everybody out of Israel because Israel fell away. And he says, be ye separate, for ye are the temple of God now if you're saved. And then I'll be your father, and you shall be my sons and daughters. And so I truly believe that Israel fell between 1st and 2nd Corinthians. And the books that belong to us are 2 Corinthians chapter 7. After he calls them out 6:14 through 18. And so from 2 Corinthians 7 through Philemon are the books that belong to us, as God has gone to the Gentiles to provoke Israel to jealousy. The fullness of the Gentiles and the times of the Gentiles are these ages right now, and God will deal with Israel once again, and the world that rejects him in the Great Tribulation. But those that accept him right now are supposed to come out from among unbelievers. Israel is an unbeliever. There's no doubt Israel as a nation are unbelievers, and you want to come out from among unbelievers and be separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing. The unclean thing will be found in Philippians 3. Hopefully you'll study these verses, because I can't write the whole Bible out on the board, but this will show you which books belong to us in this age. And study Philippians 3 that says, in chapter 3, there's 2 righteousness in the Bible, and under law was a man's righteousness, and our righteousness after Jesus died on the cross are filthy rags. And you want to have his righteousness, not our righteousness now. So the Bible, before perfection comes, is in part. And when perfection comes, you want the in part's done away with. And that's definitely an in part thing that was done away with at the cross, is righteousness. Jesus died on the cross, and his righteousness is perfect. So you want to study Philippians 3 and have his righteousness. Touch not the unclean thing, according to 2 Corinthians 6:14. Our righteousness is filthy rags and dung now. Please apprehend his righteousness and be saved, so that you too can go to heaven. Don't try and be saved by the works of the law. The works of the law cannot save you to heaven. Be saved by Jesus' cross. Only his righteousness can save you to heaven. Please don't try and think that your righteousness is going to save you to heaven, but try and let that righteousness go. The good things that you do will not take you to heaven. Only his righteousness is perfect and can take you to heaven. So please get saved by the cross and let go of that righteousness and come out from among Israel. If you're in Israel at all, in the verses or in Israel at all, come out from among Israel. Come out from among unbelievers. If they call themselves brethren and they aren't brethren, please come out from among them. You can't be taken out of the world until God wants you to. Hopefully it's in the rapture. Thank you for studying with me and coming to join me in this video once again, Greg's Preaching Right Division. And thank you so much. Hope to see you next time. Thanks.